Welcome! In this tutorial we'll be making a terrain with the free version of Gaea and Blender for texturing. First, let's go to the Quad Spinner site and download the community version. Now here in Gaea, click on blank, and here is the 3D view. To orbit, Alt and left click, with middle mouse button for panning, and the scroll wheel for zooming. Here in the graph, we'll create the terrain. In the toolbox, we can find the primitives to start the terrain and also the processes. Let's start by adding purling. Just drag into the graph. In the right panel, we can find the properties of the node. We can play with the scale. Also with seed, we can get a different result since everything is procedural. Let's go ahead and add range. Connect purling to range and click auto level. And we can change the influence, and also we can play with the scale. Now we need an erosion process. Go down here and drag erosion. In properties, increase duration, and we need to click on apply so the process takes effect. We can also increase down cutting so we can get this erosion effect. Now let's add sediment. Drag and release and search for combine. Now connect sediment on the second input and we can mix them with ratio. This is a very simple terrain since I am not an expert in Gaea, but you can play a little more by adding more primitives or processes. And if you want to learn more of Gaea, I recommend you to go to Quad Spinner YouTube channel. Okay, so now we can export the maps. To do that, right click on Combine, which was the last node, and mark for export. Drag and release and look for slope. With this node, we are going to create a mask that later we can use for texturing. To see slope in 3D, right click on Combine and pin as underlay. In properties, we can modify it with these sliders. What I want is to create a mask for the grass, the white color for grass texture, and black color for rocks or mountains. Let's go down here and add soil. Increase power just a little bit and apply it. Now right click and mark for export. Let's go here and click on build, and here we can rename the maps. Combine will be the displacement map. Slope the grass. And soil, I will leave it as it is. I'm gonna use PNG for both grass and soil. And for displacement, we need to use EXR. The limit to export in the free version is 1024. And now choose the destination to save the maps. Now, before clicking on Start Build, we have to save the project. And now click Start Build. Once we have the maps, we can move to Blender. I'm gonna delete everything with X. Now with Shift A, add a plane. Press Tab for edit mode. Right click and subdivide. And I'm gonna change to 30 cuts. And now let's add a subdivision surface modifier. And also a displace modifier. Set mid-level to 0. Click on New. Then click on this button. Open. And now look for the textures we created on Gaea and select the displacement map. Right click and shade smooth. Now let's go back to the modifier. In coordinates, change to UV. I'm gonna increase strength to 2.5. And now we can increase the levels of subdivision. To prevent this deformation, go to UV editing. Press A to select it, then S and scale it down. Now let's go back to layout. For fast 3D viewport, try to keep low the levels of viewport, and we can use a higher level for final render. Now to add the textures, let's go to shading, create a material. First we need to enable Not Wrangler add-on. In Preferences, Add-ons, and look for Wrangler. Okay, so now select the shader and press Ctrl-Shift-T and add the rock textures. I will put the link in the description for all the textures that I will use. Now select the three textures, color, roughness, and normal. Switch to material preview. And now in mapping, I'm gonna increase scale to 8 to repeat the texture. And now lower specular, otherwise the surface will look too bright. With Shift A, shader, add principle BSDF, then shader, mix shader, and drop it here. Connect the new shader to the second input. And again, Ctrl-Shift-T, but this time select the grass textures. We could mix the two textures with Factor, but we will use the mask that we created on Gaea. Shift-A, Texture, Image Texture, and select the grass mask. Switch to non-color and connect into Factor. Lower specular as well, and we can play with the mask. In Converter, Add color ramp. With the slider we can feather the edges or make them sharper. We can add more textures. I'm gonna duplicate the shader with Shift D, also mix shader, and the texture and color ramp. Now click on the folder and select the soil mask. Now add the new textures. And don't forget to switch to non-color. And that's it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.